All right, so today we're talking about Ethereum and whether or not Ethereum is still a hold, a buy, a sell, where all of this is going, and how and what is affecting the market right now. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. Today we're going to really dive into ETH and get into the weeds, I think, both on not only some of the news that's really covering this space, but also the fact that we've seen a lot of movement in the space that's helping to elongate this market. So we'll get into all that today for sure. Before we get started, though, I want to thank our channel sponsor, and that is iTrust Capital, one of the best crypto IRA platforms out there. You guys cannot go wrong if you are interested in getting into a crypto IRA, which a lot of people towards the year end start to look at this to start to scuttle away a little bit of money. Remember, this is tax-free that goes into that. You will have to move fiat money into this, though, but it does give you the ability to do some pretty amazing things, including 24/7 investing, very low cost. It's a 1% transaction fee, no more monthly fees on this. You get, of course, all the great tax-free IRA benefits with iTrust Capital. And of course, you can do this very simply by just joining. Guess what they're going to give you if you simply enter your email right here on this page? That is $100 in Bitcoin. All you have to do is click the link below in the description. That'll get you $100 in Bitcoin, and it'll start you on your journey to maybe get into investing in your IRA, which is a long-term hold. You can get into some of these blue chips projects like Ethereum, like Bitcoin, and definitely something that I do, and I love, of course, them as a sponsor of the channel. So let's get into ETH a little bit deeper, because I think a lot of people here on the channel are both ETH holders. They look at the altcoin space in a completely different way, and Ethereum is really kind of the big dog in the hunt. And if you look at kind of where the market is moving and has been moving over the last few days, Ethereum has started to make a little bit of a interesting slide, both upwards and sideways, in comparison to what's happening over on Bitcoin. I want to jump to some of the scenarios that I think are happening here. And if you guys have been watching our channel for very long, you know that my big push toward Ethereum and the 10K number has been one of the things that I feel like ETH has the capacity to do. Now, there has been some changes in the marketplace. There's been some changes both on Solana, the evolution of where where Luna is going. And then also, if you look at just the activity of what's happening over on BNB, and I'll explain how all of this plays into the price prediction for ETH and maybe how long it's going to take. One thing, though, is very clear, and that is there are a lot of people playing in the ETH playground that are in a different price bracket than most people. To this story, large traders dominate DEXs as high Ethereum fees keep retail investors at bay. The average trade size on a Curve Finance ranges from 500K to 1 million, and this is based on a research piece by Keiko. And if you look at kind of just the overall, track here on Curve from all the way back to October-ish of 2020, you can see the ramp up here on what these trade sizes are increasing to, and you can kind of see just the number. It's really starting to push heavy. And this, of course, has all been in relationship to gas fees. And that, I think, is one of the biggest deterrents right now to what's happening in ETH itself. And if you look back to the story, decentralized finance, DeFi, came to existence to basically democratize finance. Much like the internet made content accessible to everyone, the whole play on DeFi was that these DEXs would really kind of change the evolution of how people were going to go into investing, and do it in a way that was going to make it cheap, easy and accessible. And of course, that we know has not played out with the gas fees on ETH. Hence, why we're seeing a movement toward ETH 2.0. And I'll get into where ETH 2.0 stands, why that potentially could be a play into the future, and also who are the participants to watch in comparison. So are there some hedges here for ETH? The average trade sizes increased on all DEXs over the past few months. Actual number of trades stayed flat, which suggests that the profile of average trader now skews much more into the whale lineup. I kind of think when you look at this and just across the DEXs, you've got Uniswap V2, V3, SushiSwap Curve, and then obviously Balancer. I don't know. This is pointing to the direction that I'm not really fond of, and that is that we continue to see the rich getting richer, especially with the ETH ecosystem, because it is so broad and just has so much dominance in the space, and the ability for so many projects to really be kicking off in ETH. This is going to be, I think, a long-term issue that ETH is just going to face over the period of time. The question is going to be, can the bigger wallets carry the load of ETH trying to get to the ETH 2.0 rollout? Let's talk about the first anniversary of Ethereum. Their 2.0 beacon chain, which is the one that solidified the proof of stake shift. This was essentially, as the beacon chain was the first time that they started looking at going over to true proof of work as opposed to proof of stake versus proof of work. So the Ethereum community is celebrating its first anniversary. That was on December 1, 2020. And if you look at where since the chain launched, since the beacon chain launched last year, Ethereum has completed several major upgrades in its roadmap for ETH 2.0. Basically, everybody knows about the Berlin hard fork that was driving prices to where we see around $2,200. This was back in April. And then while Berlin was still producing little impact for the typical Ethereum end user in terms of gas fees, the upgrade did pave the way for kind of the next upgrade, which was the one in August, and that was the one we reported on extensively in terms of the London hard fork. And that was an EIP, so the 1559, which introduced base fee that's burning along 5. This is where ETH starts to get deflationary, because we start to see burning of ETH over time, which starts to add value to the value proposition of where ETH is going. So if you look at here, let's look here. According to Ultrasound Money, nearly 1.8 million ETH, or 5 billion, early 5 billion at current prices, has been destroyed since the EIP 1559 went live in August. That's a very short period of time, and it is driving a huge deflationary pressure on ETH's supply, which is why I feel like ETH might be still underpriced. And this is, I know a lot of people are looking at it and it's just, Paul, these things aren't moving. We're seeing kind of this dead zone. And I feel like we're seeing so many market pressures, FUD, the issue with gas prices, and also the issue of these altcoins, these layer 2s and the L1s that are really starting to move in and recreate the ecosystem, which is something I'm not sure ETH was really prepared for. The Altair upgrade, Ethereum's most recent upgrade, went live at the end of October. This is pushing prices to the all-time new high. This is where we are right now at 4,400. And unlike Berlin and London, the Altair upgrades were made to Ethereum's Beacon 2.0 chain. So this is really the first time they've pulled in code on the Beacon 2 chain. And if you look at what Tim Bako says, he describes Altair as basically testing the Beacon chain and making sure it's working properly. So basically they're doing a trial run, a soft launch as they call them. And I think that is really showing some potential signs here that ETH might be on track for this. So the merge, looking forward to Ethereum community is anxiously awaiting, obviously, the network's chain merge with Beacon Chain. When that does occur, we'll see proof of stake consensus, and all transfers will start to move away into and away from the transaction validation chain and the stakers that are holding those. That's why this is so important. While no firm date, though, is set, Bako, who is the guy reporting on this, recently estimated that the upgrade may take and possibly ship during Q2. And this is what we've been talking about for some time. Q2 of 22 would kind of be the number. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Now, initially, if you look back even into August and the potential of ETH hitting 10K, a lot of people were looking at ETH moving to 10K, but all of it was really predicated upon Bitcoin and the rest of the market taking that move into that last leg up for the bull run. Here's the problem with this, is that with Ethereum, with Bitcoin, we've seen some new addition pressures which are coming over from, obviously, this new variant that's coming in from South Africa. We've seen that kind of issue coming into play. We've seen the scenario of all these new L1s that are really putting some pressure on ETH, and then Bitcoin kind of wobbling around a little bit in terms of its potential of going higher. And even though it is breaking and we're starting to see some movement here, I think that there is some pent-up demand here. There's also a lot of people still waiting on the sidelines, And that's interesting to me because that's where it starts to get into these surging prices. So example being surging Ether hits 42-month high, made another leg up. This was the one we just talked about early this week, and this is where Ethereum has basically had a 12% rally over 3 days, basically set prices it's not seen since May 2018. And they're comparing right here in terms of the growth that happened in 2017. If you look of its comparison to 2017, it's still underperforming of what it did in 2017. A completely different scenario too with that. But the current bull cycle has seen Ethereum steadily gain 423% over Bitcoin since hitting a local low of basically 0.16 Bitcoin in early September. This was back in 2019. And Ethereum has recently been range bound between 0.58 Bitcoin and 0.083 Bitcoin since quickly rallying up to 174% during April of this year. So that was another one that really kind of started to move Ethereum. So what they're trying to say in this article is that ETH is moving, yes, but it's not moving in comparison to what we've seen previously of this particular project. So, and I think the selling pressure is going to come into play here. You've got NFT pressures coming in. You've got, of course, the gas fee pressure coming in. All of these kind of things that are really applying into what I think is the market pressures of Ethereum. And then you've got ETH 2.0 that's trying to come and become a true proof of stake program. And I think that's going to be the issue that really is, and most of the investors are faced with right now. In other words, this has been an elongated season on this bull run. And the likelihood is we will see Ethereum hit its top in 2022 as opposed to 2021, which I think a lot of people were leaning into early in the year. A lot of things have been happening. If you look at where all of the staking is being done, where some of the money is being shifted, and I want to show you some of the just proof of stake. Let's just take a look at the top 10 proof of stake networks ranked by number of stakers, okay? Look at how diverse this is. You know, you've got all the way back here to ICP. There's ETH back down here. Then you've got things like Zilliqa, Horizon, and you can kind of just see. And then here's Solana taking a big move on total number of stakers. And then, of course, you've got Hive and then ADA, Cardano. Again, locked in because of the way that program. And then you've got a lot of them that are kind of up and coming. Near Protocol, Kava, Phantom, Flow, Polkadot, AVAX. These weren't even on the list a year ago. And so we've seen the diversion of a lot of funds moving into a lot of other L1 projects. Now let's go over to proof of stake networks ranked by staked value. Look who's number one right there, Solana. Now what does that mean when you compare that to Ethereum, who's number two right now? What it tells me is that even though Solana is not necessarily a competitor or trying to be a competitor, the fact is that they're taking a little bit of the wind out of the sails of the altcoin market, which usually drives off of the ETH and feeds off of the ETH price point. So a lot of this is really kind of moving in, and I want to also just show you a little bit more here on where this is going, because I think this is the one that's kind of interesting right here. These are the top 10 holders that have basically 14.35% of the total circulating supply in Ethereum right now. And you've got a $1 billion wallet, a $634 million wallet, $400 million wallet, and so on. You can kind of see the number moving on where this liquidity is going in terms of ETH. So still fairly well balanced in terms of what that control of Ethereum is, where if you look at some projects, a lot fewer wallets hold a lot more percentage of the token. And we've got a new tool that we're starting to use to really start to analyze this. I'd love to get you guys' input on whether or not you want us to take a look at some of these projects and start to really drill down into the the chain level data to understand where this is going. So short answer to this is that ETH is definitely going to continue its track. We're starting to see some numbers. I'll show you a chart here in a second. But I think we are going to move into 2022 for its all-time high. We are most likely going to see a push on the bull run cycle moving out into 2022. Even though we've been talking about that is most likely going to happen, I know there's still a lot of people that are saying, hey, no, the cycle's still going to run end of year. I think we're past that now. We're here in early December. We've seen the cycle start to fall apart, and this is going to be a different, what I think is price discovery and cycle discovery now as we move into 2022. All right, so just remember, these market movers will do, the idea is we put together a little bit of stories, we do a little bit of analysis, but it is not investment advice. I always ask you guys to go out and do your own research. That's the best way you can move your crypto journey forward. Let's jump over to the chart real quick. Something that we added to this, and I want to start tracking against this, is this Omicron sentiment based on what's happening in the market. Are we having any kind of FUD that's affecting how a particular token or project is performing? In this case, right now, the last score we pulled, which was right here on December 2nd, sentiment is holding on ETH at 73.06 and amplification 71.08. So still a little bit of a sideways action, but it does show an upside up to around 5,100 as a potential by year end for ETH. That's a potential right now, but it does show that Ethereum is continuing to climb. If you look back at the history right here, back here of where this run up was right here, and I want to kind of show you the difference here. You've got this kind of move, which is this good trend line when sentiment was still at a 71.20, which was fairly soft. Look at the trend line and the sentiments and how they've moved up on Ethereum. So continued market support for Ethereum. And of course, we're also seeing market support from where our last one, which was right here in September. And we are up right at 75, almost 76% right here in terms of the overall market gain. So it's definitely tracking up, and it's continuing to show this in terms of a sight line. The thing that has happened is it's slowed down. And that's the point that I think a lot of people are saying, is that we may not necessarily see the blow off top in December. Even though I do think we're going to see some positive gains in December, we're probably going to see some stuff around the $5,200 mark on the high in December. It could break through if we see some new innovation coming over, or if anything has been truly kind of that earth-shattering news. As long as we don't get these crazy lockdowns or things like that that start to affect that, even though I do feel like a lot of people will start to use just cryptocurrency in general as hedges for that, and we're starting to see that from a macroeconomic side of things as well. So in the short term, I'm still an ETH holder. I've been kind of on the fence about trading some of my ETH out and moving into faster horses and moving into some of the space, especially around metaverse, because I feel like that market space, whether you look at Axie Infinity and just some of the projects that are really moving in terms of dominance, the market is really leaning into where metaverse is moving. And I just listened to an interview with Raoul Pal, who is one of the biggest ETH fans out there. And his statement was questioned was whether or not metaverse or DeFi would be the blow-off top potential here. And a lot of people are pointing to DeFi and have been pointing to DeFi because of its huge market cap and capability in terms of the overall market space. He stated that the metaverse would be most likely the one that truly starts to move in that direction. You've seen our coverage here. We've been an early mover on covering games, and a lot of what's been happening in the metaverse and NFTs. We've continued to commit to that because we think this is a big direction for not only our channel, but also for the marketplace, because this marketplace is definitely shifting right beneath our feet. So if the quick question is, do you hold ETH? Do you sell ETH? Do you try to reposition ETH? I think ETH right now, if you're not investing or if you're not actively investing any longer, then you hold your ETH. If you're trying to add to your bags, I would actually hold off of investing in ETH. I would start to look at some other projects, whether it's Solana, AVAX, Algorand, some of the other chains that are moving in that direction. They've already kind of achieved that. But even more importantly is the gaming and the NFT space, which I think is really where the gains are going to be. And if you guys are watching all that, make sure and check out some of our videos on that, because the metaverse is really where we've seen some of our biggest gains in our own portfolios. We're going to continue to drop those. We'll have our DGen video coming out. When I say DGen, our DGen portfolio, which is basically our super risky portfolio that's been doing some very interesting things. I'm going to drop that hopefully later today, so make sure and stay tuned in on that. Of course, if you guys are over on the podcast, best thing to do, jump over here to the YouTube channel, get involved quickly, jump into the Diamond Circle. We drop a lot of tools and gems in there. And of course, you can always reach me up out on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.